Welcome to the For Evansville podcast, a podcast about listening to the needs and dreams of our city so that we can help make it a place where everyone can flourish. Don't just be in Evansville, be for Evansville. We're really excited for our conversation today. We're talking with someone who definitely is for Evansville. And Adrienne, why don't you tell us more about him?
And well, we're here with Jeremy Seger today. He's a Kindermusik educator, and he's the board chair for Isaiah 117 project, which focuses on wraparound care for families in foster care that are participating in foster care. So these sound pretty disconnected from one another, you know, a kids' music program and families doing foster care, but Jeremy kind of lives in the middle of those and found a cool way for them to connect. So let's just start with Kindermusik. Can you give us a little overview and something pretty cool about it here in Evansville?
Sure. So Kindermusik is a music program, developmental, from ages newborn all the way up to age 7. And so what we do is the natural development of the child is enhanced all through music. So say in our infant classes, we're working on lots of intentional touch and bonding and mirroring, having them watch your movements and moving their bodies through space, things like that. In the 18 months to 3-year-old class, you're working on a lot of verbal skills and lots of fine and gross motors. They get their bodies starting to find themselves a little bit and kind of move around. They're starting to climb at home and things like that, starting to run, jump, all of those things. So we use music and rhythm, songs to enhance that, to help them work through those things. And then in the 3 to 5 age range, you're going into much more imaginative play. So the curriculum really tells a story through the entire semester. And so through music and instruments and our story, we create an imaginative story through that entire semester as they get engaged with it, start telling their own stories, putting sentences together, much more cognitive abilities that we're working on. And then once they hit the 5 to 7, they're really ready to begin those musical skills, learning to read on a staff, starting to play instruments. They learn the dulcimer, recorder, glockenspiel. So just lots of great things. But it really takes them where they are developmentally, and we just enhance that and help them through those stages with their parents.
Right. And the goal isn't like, from ages birth through 7, we're going to set you up to be like a world-renowned musician. We're using music to enhance like brain development.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So, all the studies have been coming out one after another that music is just so important to brain development because it's one of those activities that actually triggers both sides of our brains at the same time. And so, we've got the creative side and the mathematical science side, and those synapses that form help cross over. That helps our brain to function more efficiently at a stronger level. Problem solving, processing, all of those things, speech. And so we use music and movement in that way. So it's really just trying to enhance that development to get the most out of the music curriculum.
Yeah. I think we maybe had, I think it was Alicia Sheridan on the podcast at one point, and I remember her saying, I think it was her, saying that in the earliest stages, kids actually process speech the way that we process music. So whenever they start to form words, they're not actually thinking of them as words the way that we do, but they're thinking of the sounds the way that we think of music, which I always thought was like fascinating. But the Kindermusik in Evansville is kind of special, and we're just gonna lob this up for you to sort of humble brag about it a little bit.
It is kind of a humble brag. So,
that's right.
So we were just notified that Kindermusik International classified us as the #1 program in the United States and the #2 program internationally. So Kindermusik International is based out of Greensboro, North Carolina. And so, they have teachers and studios throughout the world. And so we had the distinct honor of being the #1 studio in the U.S. and #2 behind Singapore. in the world. But
Yeah.
we'll take number 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we are coming for you, Singapore.
Yeah, that's right. We're
maybe
coming
next
for you
year.
next year.
That's right.
Next year, Singapore. Our eyes are on you.
Yeah.
So how do they measure those outcomes, or how do they know?
So a lot of it is based on materials that you order and the size of your studio.
Okay.
So all of our curriculum and materials have to go through Greensboro. And so they supply us with all of those things. Our enrollment and everything goes through them. And so they base it on those kind of metrics.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
How many kids would you say you kind of follow them from birth to that 7 years?
So that's a great question, and I don't know. On average, I really don't know that answer because I am really focused on the 18 months to 5-year-old age. What I found is I used to teach the baby classes, and when the dads came, it was really awesome because I was able, as a dad, to be like, "Hey, okay, we can do this together." But a lot of times the moms come in and they're having some, mom issues, and maybe they're having trouble nursing or they're having difficulty bonding, or they've got a colicky baby. And what we found is it's just really nice for them to have a woman in the class to be able to relate to. And so, we talked as a studio that, for me, I think it's better, and for the parents, that I would kind of go to the 18 months to 5. And so, but we do have a lot of kids that continue through. I know basic numbers are, we are right now about 500 kids that come through our studio every week.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
that's
huge.
awesome.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. So I know I'm thinking of other podcast episodes that we've done, and we've had the topic of early childhood development and early childhood learning come up a lot. It's sometimes in surprising conversations. Like we were talking with the director of Aurora, and we asked, like, "Hey, what's one of the things that needs to change in our community to help address homelessness in our community?" And his number one response was early childhood education, which was really surprising to us because that's not something that they directly are focused on, but people are recognizing the value of that. So can you just talk to us about that a little bit? Like, what is the value that comes from working with a child in these very early ages? I mean, even as an infant, working with things like touch and developing areas of the brain, even that early on, what's the ripple effect of that as they grow up and get older?
Sure. So especially starting as an infant, we always get the question, like, why would you start? That's
Right.
something that
Why am I taking my baby to music class?
Right, exactly. But if you look at the benefits of it, you're looking at attachment, you're looking at bonding, you're looking at learning to regulate yourself already at those infant stages. So when I say regulate, I mean, being able to self-soothe. They're upset. Mom or dad holds them, it kind of calms them. There's attachment there, there's that bonding. It provides safety. It provides a sense of awareness of who they are, self-awareness,
Right.
and things like that. So even then, you're already starting to develop those skills that are needed, to enhance schoolwork or even just an emotional awareness in a child.
Right.
And so as we process through, we do the more of the education side, learning, forming words, working through problems. Not all of our kids that see us are normal ability.
Right.
So not, for those that aren't normal ability, we can help them work through those problems. That helps give them determination. They can do it, gives them self-confidence, self-esteem. But then on the other side, it shows some empathy for the other children that are in the class, that they can befriend them and be part of that and surround them. And so you're teaching community, and you're teaching, love for your neighbor and things like that, and just help in general, and seeing people as people.
Right.
And so, I think that is one of those things we have noticed, especially in this post-COVID world, for us having to wear masks for so long, it's difficult for some of the kids now to read faces.
Sure.
And so, so we're working on expression, you know, different types of facial expression and things like that. And so, I think all of those things are so important in the development of children as they grow into young girls and boys and young adults, and then into the workforce, so that they have that foundation from the very beginning of working with people, of, loving people, of feeling that secure attachment, being confident, kind of all of those things.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, so it sounds pretty like medical, developmental therapy. Do you have programs, or do people refer kids to you, or is it just a parent relationship?
So
there?
we do get several referrals from speech therapists and physical therapists and things like that, because we've been around for a while, so they know what we do and the benefits of the program. It's not like a true referral, like you think of a medical referral, because it's just a program, so there's no insurance involved or anything like that. Sometimes we do offer scholarships for those that might need scholarship help. But yeah, we do have a referral basis.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were talking about things like attachment and some of that early development that happens early in a child's, just even the bonding that happens between a child and their parents in those early years, and how that really is a foundation that lends itself to a lot of other areas of development. Being able to feel safe, being able to feel like I can explore my surroundings as a toddler, and if I fall down, my mom or dad is going to be there to pick me up and make it all better, things like that, regulating emotions, stuff like that. And I know those are all things that come up in the other area of work that we mentioned, which is foster care and the Isaiah 117 project, providing wraparound care to foster families. And so can you talk a little bit about what that looks like in that space for, unfortunately, a lot of kids who maybe haven't experienced some of those really important developmental experiences that have allowed them to form healthy attachments and develop healthy coping skills and a sense of the way that they relate to other people. And, what are some of the ways that people are able to then come in later and begin to provide some of those experiences that build that up later in life? What does that look like?
Sure, absolutely. So, attachment is just such a key form of our development. Just like you said, from the very early on, that is the root of our development, is if we are attached. And so,
and when we say attached, we're talking like really forming relationships with other people,
yes,
right?
Yes. So we're forming relationships, and that primary attachment is to your caregiver, specifically your mom and dad. When children have difficulty attaching, whether that be for removal from their home, in the case of children entering care into the foster system, whether that be the death of a parent or something like that. There's something traumatic that could happen like that. There is a difficulty, or even abuse within a home. Maybe they weren't removed, but there is abuse within the home, and there's a level of non-attachment that happens.
Right.
Through the Isaiah 117 project, we recognize that is something that the children that we serve go through.
Right.
And not only that, but it's something that the parents that we serve who are fostering need to understand as well, because that's one of the most important things, is that, when you're bringing a child into your home, to understand where they're coming from. We think of behaviors as just being behaviors.
Right.
Really, it's an expression of an emotion. And if they don't have that proper expression, that emotion is going to come out as a behavior.
Right.
And so being able to walk alongside a family and say, these are behaviors because of this, or, let us help you. We've got people who are professionals that have been there. We can help counsel you. We can help give you different techniques. one of the things that I personally learned through our adoption is, the timeout is like, everybody's like, oh, timeout. But with somebody who has attachment issues, that's actually the worst thing you could do.
Right.
Because you're removing them again from your care, from your presence.
Yeah.
And so you, instead of doing timeout, you do time in. Time in with them. And so it seems counterproductive, but you're not working with somebody who has, and I don't mean this, in a negative way, but normal brain or development.
Sure.
They're, because of whatever trauma they've been through,
Right.
Their brain is functioning differently than somebody who is, neuronormal.
Yeah.
And so, that attachment and is just super key to what we do. Being able and being consistent, I think, is something else that's important in when we are wrapping around the care for the families. The same people, we want the same people to go, and the children can know them and meet them, develop those relationships, work through those things. So, that's so important in the work that we do.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, you segued nicely for us from Kindermusik to this Isaiah 117 project. Could you explain, just give us an overarching view of what that is for people who don't know?
Sure, absolutely. So the Isaiah 117 project is a local nonprofit. We serve 8 surrounding communities or counties rather in Southwest Indiana, and we provide relief, rehab, and restoration to children and families that are in the foster care system. So our relief care is really through our Bags of Hope and our Dream Cycles program. So if a child is taken to any of our local hospitals, say there was a huge drug bust and there were children removed, taken to the hospital because they have to be checked out. Maybe there was meth, they have to take off all their clothes. Right. They can't take anything with them. The hospital has bags with pajamas, all of the necessities that they can take with them to wherever they'll be placed, so that they have those. Okay. Our Dream Cycles program provides bicycles for children in care, and that is so that they have the opportunity, along with if there are other siblings in the home, that they would have that opportunity to bond, through bike riding, through exercise. Not only, the exercise is so good for our mental health, our physical health. If they're older, maybe they're a teenager, it gives them some freedom, maybe help them get a job close to home, so give them a little bit of freedom in that regard. So, those programs are kind of our relief. But our new program is Fortifying Foster Families. We call it F3, and I kind of liken it to a tornado because it's kind of right. F3, my brother's a meteorologist, and so I'm like, oh, F3, it's a tornado. Yeah. But when I have that image of a tornado, the tornado wraps around its center. Yeah. Right? And so the family is the center, and we have all this care wrapping around our family. Yeah. It's pretty surprising. The statistics are shocking. 75% of families that do not have wraparound care within the first 2 years that foster will quit. If they have care, if they have help and wraparound care, those first 2 years, 90% continue to foster. Wow. So
that's huge.
It's huge. And as an organization, we looked at those numbers and we said, what are we doing in our community? What are we doing in our community to change those numbers? Because here in Southwestern Indiana, we have 7 children waiting care to 1 foster family that can take them in. And so we said, okay, well, if 90% continue to foster, then we need to wrap around them. Yes. We need to help them. So we've hired a full-time social worker. We're reaching out to churches and organizations and businesses to help us.
So what does wraparound care look like?
Sure, no, it's right.
It looks like a tornado.
Right. Like a tornado.
Right, yeah, it's a tornado.
Sometimes chaotic.
Yeah, chaotic, right? Sometimes the house can be chaotic.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of that.
Right?
But
No, so really what we're saying is, we want the family's primary goal to be caring for the child. So we don't want them to have to worry about, a meal all the time. So maybe wraparound care for one family looks like a meal provided every week by a group of people. Maybe, we've partnered with different businesses that are offering free passes for karate or dance, so they don't have to use their money for those extracurricular activities. It helps get the children into some activities, gets them some socialization, gets them involved physically. Maybe it is respite care. Maybe mom and dad just need a break. And so we have trained people that can go over and watch the kiddos. Maybe it's somebody to just come over and help do laundry and just sit and listen.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that's really important. People really underestimate the importance of just having somebody there to listen. Yeah. So it really kind of, whatever that family needs is really what we're going to try to provide through the church and through different organizations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's hugely important. Before we started recording, we were kind of talking about that idea of being in the trenches, which I know you and your wife have been in the trenches for a long time and done that kind of thing. But even just thinking about that idea of attachment that we were talking about earlier, it's a often painful thing to be the person who is going to enter into the story of someone who just hasn't been able to form those attachments, and to be the person who's going to reach out and say, I'm going to form those attachments with you. Because to form an attachment with somebody and develop a meaningful relationship with them, by the very nature of forming those deep attachments, you are taking on some of the pain and some of the trauma that they have been carrying for a long time, sometimes since they were a very young child. And so you can't love someone and form attachment with them and not bear some of the weight of that pain. And it can be incredibly challenging and exhausting. And to try to do it alone is just about impossible. And so I know, my wife and I have had several friends of ours who have kind of entered into that world, and we've seen just the incredible weight that comes with it. And it's a weight that you need other people to come and carry it with you. And so I would love to hear from you, as you and your family have been in that space of carrying that weight and taking that on. What's maybe some wisdom or encouragement that you would share with listeners who either are in the trenches themselves right now and they're feeling that weariness of this is just too hard and I don't know if I'm cut out for this, or also for people who are listening to this and they're wondering I wonder if I could be one of those people who is providing wraparound care. Maybe they're thinking to themselves I kind of want to do that, but at the same time it sounds really scary and hard.
Sure.
So how would you speak to that aspect of just the difficulty of it and the hardness of it? How do you still invite people into that while saying, hey, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done, but you should do it?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think for those who might be questioning whether or not they can enter into the trenches, I would say, really, really prayerfully consider it, because it does take a lot. Mm-hmm. And realize that maybe you're not called to be in the trenches, but maybe you're called to support someone in the trenches.
Sure.
We're not all called to the same mission, but we can all help within the same mission. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't feel like taking on somebody who's entering care or adopting, which is kind of what we're talking about here, is something that you either can financially do or emotionally do. That's okay. But ask yourself, what can you do?
Yeah.
Because there is a place to help uplift and support the families that are there, and it is so important. Just like we've said, that support is just so important, so that those families can continue to do what they do. For those who are currently in the trenches, we were talking before we were recording, and my wife and I get asked all the time, would you do it again? Because our story is not one that necessarily has the rainbow ending. And so our answer is yes, we would, because we know we were called to do it, even though it was hard. I would say it's normal. I think that's one thing that we realized as we went through it and we began talking to people. It was an unspoken truth that this is really hard, and nobody ever really told us that. We had this imagery of, we're just going to bring these children in and it's going to be wonderful and everything's going to be great and we'll just always be this one happy family and everything will integrate perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's just not the reality. Just like we said before, when you have children who are coming from a place where there was no attachment, to try to bring them in and have them attach, even though they wanted a family, being able to interact within that family was foreign to them.
Yeah.
And so, to those families that are there, say, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Even though you feel like you're failing, you're not. But most importantly, reach out. Reach out. Reach out to the Isaiah 117 Project. Let us know. Reach out to your local church. Reach out to friends. That was one thing that my wife and I realized. We're very independent, both of us, and so, but it made us rely on our faith and on our friends to really get us through.
Yeah.
But I think overall, my final kind of cheerleading to them would be even though you don't feel like you're making a difference and you're doing a good job, you are.
Yeah.
And you're making a difference in that child's life, and that can't be measured.
Yeah. 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 I think it's the thing that I'm learning as I enter that world more and as I interact with people who are in spaces like that is that it's a really beautiful thing to be put in a situation where you need other people, and to be able to be that person to someone, and to also be in a situation where you need something from other people. That is the substance of deep community. That's like where you find those deep relationships and attachments is, whenever you're an infant and you depend entirely on another person, you form these really deep attachments. And so even as adults and as young people, whenever we find ourselves in situations where we have to depend on each other and where we really need somebody to show up and be there for us, that's where the deepest relationships are formed, and it's a privilege to have people like that in our lives and to be that person to other people. And so I think as we explore like that much bigger idea that our podcast is about, of how can we be a city where everyone flourishes, one of the things that we identify within that picture of flourishing is that every person would experience love and give love. And I think whenever we talk about love, we're really talking about those types of attachments where we really need one another and where we show up for the people who need us in a selfless way, in a way that is self-sacrificial and sometimes painful. But I think I really want to live in a community where everybody is experiencing that, and where everybody is having those types of relationships where they're there for the people who need them, and where they have people that they can lean on as well. So, yeah.
I would second that. That's the kind of community.
And if we get to play music while we do that,
right,
that's even better.
Even better.
So
that's right.
That's
right.
So
let's have a Kindermusik for adults. I'd be a part of that.
Yeah.
No, when we talked on the phone, you were really hopeful about kind of where Evansville is in this area. You said that we have a good pipeline to support families. Could you talk about just kind of the more hopeful, what are we doing well, those kind of aspects?
Sure. So specifically in the foster care arena, which is what I'm familiar with, we have a great support system for kids and families. We have an organization that's been here for a few years now called the Isaiah 117 House, which is different than the project. The house is a place where when a child is removed, they can go to the house while they're awaiting placement, which is great because then the kids don't have to be in an office, sleep on the floor, any of those things. They can get a shower, they can get some clothes if they need it, any of those things, and wait in a very safe and fun place, clean place until they are put with their family. And then after that, that's kind of where the Isaiah 117 project takes over, where we're identifying those families and saying, okay, well now those families have placement, so we're going to wrap around you and we're going to say, okay, what do you need? How can we support you? Who can we get you connected with, so that you can continue to foster. If maybe this child is placed back with their family of origin, then you're willing to take someone else into your home. Right. So we want to make that opportunity available to them with the support. And then once a child hits age 18, we have another organization called Foster Care in the U.S., which is a great organization, and they specialize in getting GEDs, helping with jobs, getting apartments and driver's license, things like that. And so we really have a great pipeline in our community that we have the potential to really change the face of children in care and the care that families and children receive. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago, 2019. I think 2020, I forget that it's even happened.
Yeah.
So a study came out that Indiana was second in the nation in child abuse and neglect, and Kentucky was number one. And so we are right there at the center of that. And so that's why our numbers are extremely high in this region. And so if we can create this pipeline and this system that helps families and helps children, we're not just changing the lives of that one child or that one family, we're changing generations possibly.
Right.
And we could be a model for other communities to say, wow, this is really working for them. They've got a place to go right away when they're removed. They've got support for the family, when the family takes over and takes a child into their home. And then once the child, kind of ages out, then they've got support for that individual, that young adult, so that they don't end up on the streets and homeless. So I really do think Evansville has a great system kind of in place. So it's, it really speaks highly of our community.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, if you are interested in being a part of that pipeline that Jeremy just talked about, we actually already have a page on our website sort of devoted to those organizations that he referenced and a few others who are collaborating around the topic of foster care in our community. And if you find that page on our website, we actually have a space where you can get connected into that and find the best opportunity that you have to serve in one of those organizations or alongside them in some way. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to just hear more of your story and the great work that you guys are doing. And thank you for being for Evansville.
Yeah. Thank you.